The night sky over the colony world of Haven was quiet until the stars began to move. A single streak of fire tore across the black horizon, bright enough to wake the night patrols. The ground shook moments later as something massive slammed into the desert beyond the settlement. Sirens wailed through the colony domes, and people rushed to the windows. Out in the wasteland, a red glow pulsed like a heartbeat. No one could tell what it was. Some said it was a ship, others whispered it was a meteor, but those who had lived long enough on the frontier knew the universe liked to send things that didn't fit any rule. The military arrived within minutes. Dune crawlers rolled out with searchlights cutting through dust. The team commander, Captain Reeve, stood on the ramp, squinting at the crater's edge. Whatever had fallen was huge, at least 30 meters long, and the heat around it shimmered in waves. The scanners showed no known alloy, no common energy signature, just a deep, rhythmic pulse, like something breathing. The scientists who followed Reeve moved closer with caution. They wore hazard suits, stepping over chunks of melted sand. When they reached the rim, everyone stopped. The object inside the crater wasn't a ship at all. It looked alive. Its body was covered in overlapping plates that gleamed like metal but moved like skin. Its wings were torn and smoking. Each breath released a hiss of white vapor. Then they saw the head, long, angular, and crowned with faintly glowing horns. Around its thick neck hung something strange. A chain made of light itself, carrying a pendant that shifted with unknown symbols. Reeve raised his weapon without thinking. "Whatever this is," he muttered, "it's not human." The order came quickly to secure it. Drones surrounded the crater and sprayed cooling foam across the body. Mechanical clamps locked around its limbs. Soldiers shouted as the ground trembled again, but the creature didn't fight back. Its eyes flickered open for only a second, twin pools of molten gold that seemed to see through everything, and then went still again. They loaded it onto a hover hauler and took it to the colony's research bay, sealing the doors behind layers of energy fields. The story spread through the colony before dawn. People gathered at the edges of the perimeter fence, whispering about the monster that fell from the sky. Some said it was a weapon from an enemy race. Others said it was the return of something humans had forgotten. Among the crowd that morning was a boy named Eli. He was small for his age, quiet, and curious in ways that made adults nervous. He spent his days helping his father repair old rovers, but his mind was always looking beyond the colony walls. When he heard about the crash, he couldn't stay away. He climbed the southern ridge and looked down at the sealed hangar where soldiers stood guard. The air shimmered from the generators. Eli's eyes caught a faint blue pulse beneath the metal doors, like the thing inside was still alive. For some reason, he didn't feel fear. He felt a pull, a strange warmth in his chest that made no sense. Inside the facility, scientists worked nonstop. They called the creature Subject Delta. Scans showed a mix of organic and synthetic tissue, something made, not born. The necklace around its neck couldn't be removed. Every tool that touched it sparked and failed. The symbols shifted constantly, rearranging like they were alive. One researcher tried to record them, but the data erased itself. The commander grew impatient. "If it wakes up, we end it," Reeve said coldly. "We don't take chances on alien monsters." But one of the scientists, Dr. Marin, disagreed. She believed the creature was trying to communicate. "Its neural patterns spike when people speak near it," she said. "It's listening." Reeve didn't care. To him, anything that big and strange was a threat waiting to happen. That night, the desert wind howled against the domes. The guards were restless, keeping their rifles ready. Eli waited until the lights dimmed and slipped out of his quarters. He knew the colony layout by heart, every tunnel, every vent. His father was asleep, and no one noticed the small figure darting through the shadows. He reached the research hangar and found a side door half open, probably left by tired engineers. The hum of machines filled the air. The moment he stepped inside, he felt it again, that pull, stronger this time. It was like the air itself whispered his name. He walked past the silent consoles and saw it through the glass wall. The dragon, chained in light, breathing slowly under the glow of sterile lamps. Even wounded, it looked powerful, ancient. Eli pressed a hand against the glass. The necklace on the dragon's neck flickered. For a second, the symbols formed into shapes that almost looked like letters he recognized. But before he could be sure, they changed again. The creature's eyes opened slowly. Golden light filled the chamber. Eli froze. The guards outside didn't notice. The dragon's gaze met his, and something impossible happened. A voice echoed inside Eli's head. Not loud, not clear, but soft like a forgotten memory. He didn't understand the words, yet he felt them. It was sadness. It was pain. It was loneliness. He stepped closer to the glass. "You're not a monster, are you?" he whispered. The dragon blinked once. The necklace pulsed again, and the pendant turned brighter, casting patterns of light on the walls. Then alarms blared. The security systems detected movement in the containment chamber. Eli ducked behind a console as red lights flashed everywhere. Guards ran in shouting orders. The dragon's eyes dimmed, and it went still again as energy fields reactivated. Reeve stormed in moments later. "What happened?" he barked. "It moved," said one of the techs. The sensors went crazy for a second, like it was responding to someone. Reeve's eyes scanned the room. He saw nothing but machines. "Double the guards," he ordered. "No one comes near this thing again." Eli escaped through the same vent he came from, his heart pounding. When he reached the cold night outside, he looked back at the hangar. In the distance, the faint blue pulse of the creature's necklace was visible through the metal cracks, flickering in rhythm with his own heartbeat. He didn't understand what had happened, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Something about that dragon felt connected to him, as if it had been waiting for someone and somehow that someone was him. As the twin moons rose above the desert, the scientists continued their tests, unaware that the dragon's pulse had started to match the heartbeat of a human boy far beyond the glass. And in the silence between those beats, something ancient whispered through the air. A word that no human had heard for centuries, carried by the soft hum of the necklace that refused to stop glowing. Inside the research hangar, the air felt heavier with each passing hour. Soldiers patrolled the corridors with rifles clutched tight, and scientists spoke in low voices as if afraid the creature could hear them through the walls. The dragon hadn't moved since the night of the alarm, but its heartbeat still echoed through the scanners. A slow, deep rhythm that refused to die out. The necklace continued to glow faintly, casting shifting light over the lab equipment. No one could explain it, and no one dared to touch it again after the last attempt melted a robotic arm. Captain Reeve stood by the observation window, jaw tight, eyes cold. "If it wakes," he told his men, "we burn it down before it even breathes." But Dr. Marin, who'd been studying the readings for days, looked up from her console and said softly, "If it meant to harm us, Captain, it would have done so already." Reeve didn't reply. He simply walked out, leaving her alone with the dragon and her doubts. Outside, the colony carried on as usual, pretending nothing had changed, but everyone knew something powerful was locked beneath their feet. Rumors spread faster than official reports. Some said it was an alien god, others that it was a weapon built by the old Earth government. No one spoke about the boy who had sneaked inside, because no one knew, except Eli himself. Since that night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those golden eyes staring back, filled with sadness that wasn't human but still felt familiar. He kept hearing faint whispers when he walked near the hangar fences, like echoes trapped in the wind. He wanted to go back, but guards now watched every door. Eli tried to distract himself by helping his father in the repair shed. The old man didn't notice how quiet his son had become. "Pass me the wrench," he said, working on a damaged crawler engine. Eli handed it over but kept glancing at the horizon, where the sun burned orange over the sand dunes. He felt something calling him again, a steady pulse deep inside his chest. When he looked down, he realized the small metal pendant his mother had given him, a simple keepsake, was faintly vibrating. It was something she had found years ago before she died. A relic, she had said, from the ruins of old Earth. He never thought much of it until now. He held it in his palm, and for a second, It pulsed in the same rhythm as the dragon's necklace. That night, he couldn't resist. He waited until his father was asleep again and sneaked out through the service tunnels. The colony's night lamps painted everything in pale blue light. When he reached the hangar, 2 guards stood at the main door. He circled around to the vent he had used before, but it was sealed now. Still, Eli was small, and curiosity made him fearless. He found another path, a maintenance shaft leading down toward the lower levels. The air was warm, humming with the energy of generators. When he reached the glass chamber, he crouched low and peered through. The dragon still lay motionless, but this time something was different. The light from its necklace had dimmed, almost fading, as if it were dying. Without thinking, Eli whispered, "Can you hear me?" The lights above flickered. A low sound rolled through the floor, a deep, tired breath. The dragon's eye opened, faint but alive. Its voice echoed again, not through sound but inside Eli's mind. The words were broken, hard to understand. "You human here?" Eli nodded even though it probably couldn't see him clearly. "Yes," he whispered, pressing his hand against the glass. "Who are you?" The creature blinked slowly, and Eli saw tears forming at the edges of its eyes. Tears that shimmered like molten gold. "Guardian, forgotten." The voice faded, and the light of the necklace dimmed further. Eli panicked. He pulled out his mother's pendant, holding it toward the glass. The moment he did, both pendants, his and the dragon's, flared with the same color of light. Symbols appeared between them, floating in the air like holograms. The shapes twisted and turned until they formed letters Eli could almost read. The door behind him hissed open suddenly. "Hey, who's there?" a soldier shouted. Eli froze. The light vanished instantly, and the dragon's eye closed again. He turned and ran toward the side corridor before the guards could see him. "Stop!" they yelled. But he slipped through a maintenance hatch and disappeared into the dark tunnels. His heart was racing, and the pendant in his hand was still warm. He didn't know what those symbols meant, but he was sure of one thing: they weren't alien. He had seen some of those letters before, scratched into old textbooks from Earth history. By morning, the colony buzzed with more tension. The scientists reported strange readings again, claiming the creature's energy had briefly synchronized with something outside the chamber. Captain Reeve ordered a lockdown, accusing the science team of hiding information. "We're not here to study a myth," he said coldly. "If it's dangerous, we kill it. I won't let another colony fall because of curiosity." Dr. Marin tried to reason with him, insisting that the creature's mind patterns responded to human language. Reeve silenced her with a glare. "No one talks to it again," he said. "We start termination protocol tomorrow." Eli overheard that order from the repair base comm feed. His blood turned cold. They were going to kill it. He didn't know why, but he couldn't let that happen. Something inside him felt connected to that being, something deep like a memory older than him. That evening, as he watched the desert sunset, he made up his mind. He would go back one last time, not to look but to understand. He waited until the night guards changed shifts and slipped into the tunnels again, heart pounding with every step. When he reached the lab, alarms were off, lights dimmed, and only 2 researchers remained, asleep at their desks. The dragon was still there, chest rising slowly, necklace barely glowing. Eli crept closer, whispering, "I can help you." The pendant in his hand glowed again, stronger this time. The dragon's eyes opened wide. The words came clearer than before. "Read the chain." Eli looked closer at the necklace. The symbols were steady now, no longer shifting. He traced them with his eyes, whispering each sign softly, one by one. His pendant flashed with every sound. The final shape glowed brighter than all the rest, and the air filled with a low hum that rattled the glass. Suddenly, the lab systems came alive. Lights blinked red. Warning sirens screamed. Energy meters spiked into overload. Eli stumbled back, terrified. The dragon's voice boomed inside his head, full of pain but also relief. "You remembered." The energy fields around the containment broke apart with a thunderous crack. The glass wall shattered outward in a shower of sparks and smoke. Guards came running, shouting orders, raising weapons. The dragon didn't attack. It simply looked down at the trembling boy and then turned its head toward the ceiling, where the first light of dawn was breaking through the cracks. Captain Reeve arrived moments later, face pale with fury. "Open fire!" he screamed, but Dr. Marin pushed past him, shouting, "Stop! It's not attacking." The soldiers hesitated, unsure. The dragon's wings twitched weakly, folding around itself as if shielding the boy from the rifles pointed at them. The necklace glowed with blinding light, reflecting off Eli's pendant, linking them both in a web of energy. And in that light, everyone in the room saw something impossible. A flicker of ancient images filling the air. Earth's blue oceans, towering metal dragons soaring through battle skies, human soldiers riding alongside them, fighting shoulder to shoulder. The vision lasted only seconds, then vanished as the dragon collapsed again, exhausted. Silence filled the lab. Smoke drifted through the air. Eli stood shaking, holding his pendant close to his chest. Captain Reeve lowered his weapon slowly, eyes wide, face drained of color. Dr. Marin whispered, "It's not an enemy. It's one of us." No one spoke after that. But Eli knew something had changed forever. The necklace on his chest still pulsed softly, in the same rhythm as the dragon's fading heartbeat, as if the two were now bound by something far older than anyone there could understand. The morning after the containment breach, the colony was on lockdown. Drones floated above every corridor, scanning faces and checking passes. No one was allowed near the research bay. The official broadcast said a biological hazard had escaped, but people weren't fools. Everyone whispered about the dragon, the monster that survived plasma fire and broke through military shields. Some said it was dead. Others swore they saw it flying over the dunes before sunrise. But the truth was stranger. The dragon was still inside, heavily restrained again, surrounded by new containment fields powered by an entire generator core. And in the middle of all that chaos, a frightened boy named Eli sat quietly in an interrogation room. Two guards watched him from behind the glass as Captain Reeve entered. His uniform was scorched from the explosion the night before. "You were in that lab," Reeve said, voice low but shaking with anger. "You almost got everyone killed." Eli didn't look up. He held his mother's pendant tight in both hands, eyes red but calm. "It wasn't trying to hurt anyone," he said softly. Reeve slammed his hand on the table. "That thing destroyed half our power grid. You want to tell me it's friendly?" Eli finally met his eyes. "It showed me something," he said. "It showed me Earth." Reeve froze for half a second before recovering his cold tone. "You're just a kid. You saw whatever that creature wanted you to see. Don't make up stories." He turned to leave, but Eli's next words stopped him. "The words on its necklace. They're human." That single line changed everything. Reeve didn't show it, but inside, his mind twisted in disbelief. When he left the room, Dr. Marin was waiting in the hall, holding a datapad filled with scans of the symbols. "He's right," she said before he could speak. "They aren't alien characters. I compared them to fragments from the old Earth archives. They match." Reeve frowned. "Match what?" "Ancient Terran languages," she said. "A mix of old Earth dialects. Latin, English, something older, maybe something coded. It's like the necklace was made by humans, not aliens." Reeve shook his head. "That's impossible." But Marin didn't smile. "Is it?" she said. "We found the creature on a crash trajectory from deep space. What if it wasn't invading? What if it was trying to come home?" Meanwhile, Eli sat in the holding room, feeling the same strange pulse in his chest that he'd felt since the night he first saw the dragon. The pendant around his neck glowed faintly under his fingers. He could feel a low hum inside his bones, like distant thunder calling his name. When the door opened again, it wasn't Reeve. It was Dr. Marin. She looked tired but kind. "Eli," she said gently, "you said you could read some of the symbols. Can you show me?" He nodded slowly. She placed a holographic image of the necklace between them. The symbols shifted, rearranging into patterns of light. Eli stared for a long moment, his eyes following every curve and mark. Then he whispered, "These ones mean Earth. These ones mean last." He paused, touching another line. "And this part says Guardian." Dr. Marin stared at the projection, her voice a whisper. "Last Guardian of Earth." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Reeve entered behind her, face hard, but even he couldn't ignore the weight of what they had just heard. "You're telling me that thing," he gestured toward the sealed lab, "claims to be some kind of protector?" Marin didn't answer. "It's not a claim," she said. "It's an identity." In the containment chamber, the dragon lay weak but awake. Its breathing was shallow, its scales dim, but its eyes followed every movement of the people watching it. The energy around its necklace flickered with faint patterns of blue. When Eli and Dr. Marin entered, escorted by 2 guards, the creature stirred slightly. "Stay behind me," one of the soldiers warned. Eli ignored him. He stepped closer to the glass, holding up his pendant. The dragon's eyes focused on it, and the lights in the room dimmed as if responding to some invisible signal. The pendant in Eli's hand and the one around the dragon's neck began to glow in perfect rhythm. Then a deep voice, broken and hollow, filled the room, not through sound, but through every mind present. "You found the words." Eli nodded, heart pounding. "Who are you?" he whispered. The dragon's eyes softened. "I was made for you." Its voice was slow, fading between breaths. "Humanity forgot. We were your guardians." Images flashed through everyone's mind. Skies filled with fire, great winged machines soaring beside human fleets, soldiers cheering as dragons shielded cities from destruction. Then came darkness. The same humans turned on the dragons, afraid of their power. One by one, they were hunted, destroyed, erased from memory. "Why?" Eli asked, his voice trembling. "Why would humans do that?" The dragon's gaze drifted away. "Fear makes even gods destroy what they love." Dr. Marin wiped her eyes. Reeve stood stiffly, gripping his weapon though his hands were shaking. "This is manipulation," he said harshly. "Some kind of psychic trick. Don't listen." But even he couldn't hide the unease in his tone. The dragon turned its eyes toward him, and for a moment, everyone felt something that wasn't fear. It was grief. "I guarded your world," the voice said softly, "and when your skies burned, I left, because your kind asked me to." The lights flickered, and the psychic link faded. The creature sagged against the restraints, too weak to continue. Eli's pendant dimmed again, but the warmth in his chest stayed. He turned to Dr. Marin. "We have to help it," he said. "It's dying." Reeve stepped forward. "We help it, and it might wake the others," he said. "If what it says is true, there were more. We can't risk another war." But Dr. Marin shook her head. "If there were others, they're gone. This one's the last, and it didn't come to fight. It came to remember." Outside, the colony lights flickered again as the power grid strained. The dragon's energy signature was affecting everything around it. The military council ordered immediate shutdown and evacuation of the lab. Reeve followed the order, but his eyes kept glancing back toward Eli. Something about the boy made him uneasy, as if he wasn't just connected to the creature, but part of something bigger. That night, as evacuation crews prepared to move the containment pod off-world, Eli slipped out once more. He found Dr. Marin packing her research data, tears streaking her face. "They're going to dissect it," she whispered. "They don't care what it is. They just want to control it." Eli felt the pulse in his chest grow stronger. "I can't let them," he said. Marin looked at him, torn between duty and truth. Finally, she handed him a small chip containing all her notes. "If you really believe it's alive, then don't waste time arguing with soldiers," she said. "Find the truth first." Eli nodded and looked back through the lab's glass one last time. The dragon's eyes opened again, faint but clear, watching him. The necklace glowed with slow, rhythmic light, like a heartbeat calling him closer. He pressed his hand against the glass, and for a brief second, He felt a connection stronger than fear, stronger than anything he had ever known. The dragon's voice whispered through his mind once more. The words you read are not the end. They are the beginning. As he left the lab, the night sky outside shimmered with strange lights. Far above, satellites began to fail one by one, their signals jammed by a growing surge of unknown energy. The dragon's pulse spread beyond the colony walls, reaching into space itself, awakening something ancient that had slept for centuries. And in that vast silence, somewhere beyond human reach, other lights began to flicker, faint but unmistakably alive. The colony awoke to chaos. Communication towers were flickering with static, satellites were dropping offline, and power grids overloaded across the desert outposts. No one knew why. The military said it was a solar flare, but every sensor showed something else, something pulsing from beneath the colony itself. Captain Reeve barked orders through the comms, trying to stabilize the systems, but the more power they redirected, the worse it got. And deep under the base, inside the sealed hangar, the source was breathing again. The dragon's heart had reawakened. Dr. Marin stood in the control room, her face pale under the flashing red lights. "It's not an attack," she whispered. "It's a signal." Reeve turned sharply. "Signal to who?" he snapped. But Marin didn't answer. She was staring at the readings. The same rhythmic pulse Eli's pendant had shown the night before. They matched perfectly. Reeve's stomach dropped. "Where's the boy?" he demanded. No one answered. Eli was already gone. He had slipped away hours earlier, using the tunnels that had become familiar to him. He could feel the hum inside the walls now, calling him like a voice in a dream. The dragon wasn't just reaching out. It was asking for help. When he reached the lower levels, the heavy containment doors were shaking from the energy waves. Guards stood at every post trying to stabilize the fields. One of them shouted, "The generator can't take this much longer." Another yelled back, "If it breaks, we're dead." But Eli moved unseen through the shadows, clutching the pendant in his hand like a compass. Every time it glowed brighter, he knew he was closer. Inside the chamber, the dragon lifted its head slowly for the first time in days. The wounds along its neck were sealing themselves with faint light. When it exhaled, the air shimmered with heat. "They come," it whispered through the comm systems that suddenly burst to life. The scientists froze. "Who's coming?" someone asked in panic. "Not enemies," the dragon answered weakly. "Memories." Its voice filled every speaker across the colony, a deep echo that reached every mind. "You erased us, but we never forgot you." Up above, soldiers and civilians poured into the open desert, staring at the horizon as the sand began to lift in slow spirals. Something enormous was moving underground, a pattern of shifting light tracing circles miles wide. Drones flew up for a closer look but crashed instantly, their circuits fried by invisible interference. The ground rumbled beneath their feet like a heartbeat. And in that moment, everyone who had seen the dragon understood. It wasn't alone. Reeve ran to the main comm room, shouting orders to shut it down, but Dr. Marin blocked him. "If we attack, we might kill everyone here," she warned. "You don't know what we're dealing with." Reeve's hand hovered over the override console. His voice broke for the first time. "It's a machine, Doctor. Machines don't feel sorrow." Marin looked at him with quiet fury. "Then why does it cry when it dreams?" Meanwhile, Eli reached the containment glass once more. The dragon turned its head toward him, eyes glowing softly, no longer filled with pain but calm recognition. "You read the words," it said. Eli nodded, breathless. "You said you were the last guardian." The dragon's voice echoed gently through his mind. "Yes, but they made me forget my purpose. Until you spoke the name." The necklace began to glow again, and its symbols stopped shifting. They formed clear letters, glowing brighter with every word. Eli read them aloud slowly, his voice shaking. "Guardian Protocol. Reawakening." The instant he said the last word, the lights across the base exploded into blinding white. Sirens screamed. Power grids shut down entirely. The containment fields collapsed with a deafening crack, throwing soldiers to the ground. The dragon stretched its wings fully, shattering what was left of its restraints. For a heartbeat, it stood tall, filling the entire chamber with blinding light. And then, to everyone's shock, it didn't attack. Instead, it knelt. Through the colony's speakers, its voice came steady now, strong. I was made by your ancestors to guard humanity's home. But when fear ruled your hearts, you buried the truth. You called us monsters. Its eyes turned to Eli. Yet one human remembered. Outside, clouds began to form for the first time in 100 years over heaven's dry sky. Lightning danced without sound. The storm gathered above the crater where the dragon had first landed. As Reeve and Marin ran outside with the others, the clouds split open, revealing shapes. Giant silhouettes moving behind the lightning. Metallic wings, long tails, gleaming eyes. Impossible, Reeve whispered. They're gone. They were all destroyed. No, Marin said quietly, staring upward. They were sleeping. The sky erupted with sound as thunder rolled across the desert. The figures in the clouds didn't descend. They simply vanished again, leaving trails of glowing symbols burning across the sky. The same words Eli had read now appeared above the colony for everyone to see. Guardians await the call. People dropped to their knees, watching in stunned silence. Inside the chamber, the dragon's energy began to fade. It looked down at Eli with something almost like pride. The truth is free again, it said softly. But I cannot stay. Eli shook his head, stepping closer. No, you can't die. You just came back. The dragon's eyes dimmed a little, but there was warmth in its voice. Death is not an end, child. It is a doorway. The dragon lowered its head until it was level with Eli's. The boy could see his reflection in those golden eyes, small, afraid, but glowing faintly with the same light that pulsed from the dragon's chest. The creature's massive claw reached forward carefully, and the necklace that had once bound it unclipped itself, floating gently toward Eli. You carry our memory now, it said. The necklace is a key to awaken what still sleeps. Guards burst into the room, weapons raised. Reeve was at their front, eyes full of conflict. Step away from it, boy, he shouted. But Eli didn't move. The dragon looked up one last time. Protect him, it said to the captain, and before anyone could speak, its body began to dissolve into light. Scales, wings, horns. Everything turned to shimmering dust that rose toward the ceiling, merging with the storm outside. Within seconds, it was gone. Silence fell. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Only the faint hum of the necklace remained, now glowing around Eli's neck. Reeve stared at the boy, then at the empty chamber. What have we done? He muttered. Dr. Marin stepped forward and whispered, We just woke up history. That night, the colony sky never turned dark again. Streams of light hung above the horizon like ribbons, whispering in patterns no one could decode. But Eli understood. When he touched the necklace, he felt more than one voice now. Dozens, maybe hundreds, echoing faintly across the stars. The Guardians were stirring, scattered across forgotten worlds, waiting for the human who could finally read their words. And as the wind moved through the silent desert, the necklace pulsed one final message, soft and clear in Eli's mind. Words that made his heart race with awe and fear alike. Humanity's war is coming again, and this time, you will not stand alone. The desert was quiet the next morning, but it was the kind of quiet that made your chest feel tight, like the world was holding its breath. The storm clouds had faded, leaving streaks of gold light hanging in the air. The dragon was gone, and yet, something had changed. The colony scanners showed strange readings all over the desert. Magnetic pulses, heat signatures with no sources, voices faintly whispering through the comms, voices that didn't belong to anyone on Earth. People were afraid to sleep. Every time someone closed their eyes, they said they saw shapes, metallic wings gliding through the sky above them. Eli sat at the edge of the cliff outside the colony, holding the glowing necklace tight in his hand. It was no longer just warm, it felt alive. Each pulse carried meaning, small fragments of sound and memory, but none of it was in a language humans knew. Yet somehow Eli understood. He didn't need to translate the words. He could feel what they meant. The necklace wasn't just talking to him. It was remembering through him. He saw flashes when he closed his eyes. Huge dragons flying over burning cities, humans beside them, not fighting, but commanding. Together, they had once defended the skies. But then something went wrong. He saw fire, betrayal, fear, and silence. Humanity had buried its guardians. Captain Reeve had been watching the boy from a distance. He hadn't slept since the event. His hands trembled when he poured his morning coffee. He couldn't shake the sound of the dragon's last words. Protect him. The colonel in him wanted to see Eli as a liability. But the man in him couldn't ignore the truth. The dragon had trusted him with something. He didn't know what that meant yet, but every instinct told him this wasn't over. Dr. Marin was already in the control room, working through endless streams of data. Every time she stabilized one system, another anomaly appeared. It's rewriting our satellite code, she said quietly. Every time we try to trace the signal, it moves, like it knows we're watching. Reeve frowned. Can it hurt us? She looked up from her screen. I don't think it's trying to. I think it's looking for something. Eli didn't wait for permission. The boy walked into the command center, his clothes dusty, his eyes tired but burning with something new. It's not random, he said. The signal's calling the others. Reeve turned sharply. What others? Eli lifted the necklace. The guardians. The ones still sleeping. The light from the pendant danced across the glass walls, filling the room with strange symbols that rearranged themselves like living code. It's a map, he said softly. Dr. Marin leaned closer, stunned. Eli, do you know where it leads? The boy shook his head. No, but I can feel it, like it's showing me places that remember. Reeve studied him for a long moment. The idea of following a child's instinct across the galaxy was insane. But so was everything that had happened. If this is real, Reeve said finally, we need to move before command shuts us down. That was when the transmission came in, an emergency broadcast from orbit. A fleet of unknown ships had appeared beyond the planet's upper atmosphere. No identification codes, no signals, nothing human. They're moving fast, the officer said, panic in his voice. We're being scanned. Reeve's blood ran cold. Put it on main screen. The display flickered, showing a formation of massive black vessels sliding through space, each one shaped like a jagged spear. Their hulls shimmered with energy signatures similar to the dragon's, but colder, sharper, corrupted somehow. Those aren't guardians, Marin whispered. The comms crackled again, this time with a voice, distorted, ancient, but full of malice. You woke the light, it hissed. Now the shadow will answer. Reeve didn't hesitate. Shut down the colony grid. Prepare defenses. Alarms blared. The entire outpost came alive with motion. Soldiers rushing to gun platforms, pilots running to their ships, engineers sealing the hangar bays. But Eli didn't move. He stood there, staring at the dark ships on the screen, his fingers tightening around the necklace until it burned. They're not here for us, he said quietly. They're here for me. Before Reeve could stop him, the boy ran out of the command center, straight toward the hangar. The energy from the pendant was now visible even in daylight, gold threads of light spiraling around him, pulsing with every step. The sky above began to darken again, not from clouds but from shadow. The enemy ships had entered the atmosphere. Dust swirled as the first shockwave hit, knocking soldiers to the ground. The colony trembled. Inside the hangar, Marin was yelling into her comms, trying to locate Eli. He's heading for the dragon's chamber, she shouted. Reeve grabbed his rifle and ran, his boots pounding on the steel floor. Then we go after him. When Eli reached the center of the hangar, the pendant pulsed like a heartbeat, and the ground split open. A circle of light expanded outward, forming a glowing platform beneath his feet. Ancient markings appeared across the walls, the same ones that had glowed when the dragon had awoken. The air itself began to hum, a frequency that made every glass panel tremble. Marin and Reeve burst in just as the light expanded, surrounding the boy. "Eli, step back," Reeve shouted. But it was too late. The necklace lifted itself from his chest, floating between his hands. His eyes widened as a deep voice filled the room again. Not the same dragon's voice this time, but another, older, echoing from somewhere deep below the planet. "Child of light," it said. "You have spoken the words once more. The gate remembers." Outside, the enemy ships released their first volley of plasma fire. The colony's shields barely held. Explosions ripped through the perimeter, sending flames high into the air. The ground quaked, and the hangar ceiling began to crack. Reeve threw himself over Eli, shielding him from debris. "We need to get out of here," he shouted. But Marin was frozen, staring at the platform. The symbols on it had changed again. They now formed a pattern. A circle with 7 points, each glowing like a star. "It's opening something," she whispered. A sound filled the room. A low roar, growing louder, deeper, until it felt like the entire world was vibrating. Then, out of the light, shapes began to appear, massive, metallic, majestic. Dragons, but not flesh and bone this time. Machines of fire and steel, their eyes burning gold. One by one, they emerged from the light, stretching wings that glowed like molten metal. The boy looked up in awe. "They heard the call," he whispered. The lead dragon lowered its head toward him, just as the ceiling above them exploded from enemy fire. The ground shattered, and dust filled the air. But through it, the dragon's voice thundered with impossible clarity. "Guardian Protocol. Reactivation confirmed." As enemy ships descended through the firestorm, the first of the awakened guardians took flight. The colony's night sky lit up like the birth of a new sun, and for the first time in human history, dragons of light flew again. Eli stood at the center of it all, the necklace glowing like a star around his neck, as the war for the skies of heaven truly began. The sky above heaven burned. Plasma streaks cut through the clouds as the enemy fleet descended, raining fire on the desert colony. Explosions turned the horizon into a wall of orange light. The ground shook under each blast. The people of the colony, scientists, soldiers, and civilians, ran for cover while the defenders tried to hold the line. But everyone could see it. Humanity's weapons were useless against what was coming. The black ships weren't made of any metal known to Earth. Each one seemed alive, moving with purpose, like predators that had been waiting centuries for this moment. Eli stood in the middle of the storm, light swirling around him like a living shield. The necklace burned against his chest, pulsing with raw power that made his hair stand on end. The dragons, the guardians, had risen from the depths of the hangar, 7 colossal figures of metal and fire. They hovered above the colony now, wings unfolding like storm clouds, their golden eyes fixed on the dark fleet in the sky. One of them turned its head slightly toward Eli. "The shadows return," it said, its voice shaking the air itself. "Their hunger is unchanged." Captain Reeve, covered in dust and smoke, stumbled into the open just in time to see the impossible. "By God!" he breathed. His rifle hung forgotten at his side as one of the guardians soared overhead, the wind from its wings throwing sand and debris in every direction. He could feel the sound in his bones. Dr. Marin joined him moments later, blood running down her arm from a cut she hadn't even noticed. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the fire above. "They're fighting for us," she whispered. The first collision came like thunder. A black spear-shaped ship dove from the sky, firing a beam of burning violet energy at the lead guardian. The dragon twisted midair, taking the hit on its armored wing before roaring back, unleashing a beam of golden fire that split the sky in half. The two energies met, crackling with blinding light. When it cleared, the alien ship was falling, its hull melting, breaking apart as it slammed into the desert below, carving a crater miles wide. The ground trembled again, and cheers erupted from the soldiers who saw it happen. But the joy lasted only seconds. 10 more ships replaced the one that fell. Eli clutched the necklace tighter, eyes shut, trying to listen. The pendant wasn't just reacting, it was speaking. He could feel voices overlapping in his head, ancient and powerful, each one trying to guide him. He didn't understand all of it, but he caught fragments. 7 awakened, 7 worlds linked, heart of the gate. His eyes snapped open. The Guardians weren't just fighting, they were trying to protect something buried beneath the colony. Something older than both species. Reeve ran up beside him, grabbing the boy's shoulder. "We have to get you out of here. The fleet's targeting you." But Eli shook his head. "No, they're not after me. They're after what's under us." Before Reeve could reply, another explosion rocked the ground. The colony's defensive shields failed completely, and fire rained across the compound. Dozens of soldiers screamed as buildings crumbled. A Guardian landed between them and the collapsing command center, spreading its wings wide, forming a shield of molten energy that absorbed the blast. Its voice rumbled through the comms. "Human, move the child to the core." Reeve stared upward. "The core? What's down there?" Dr. Marin ran toward them, her tablet flashing with unreadable symbols. "It's true," she gasped. "The sensors show a chamber beneath the surface. Something massive, something dormant." She turned to Eli. "The necklace? It's the key, isn't it?" Eli nodded. "It's what the first dragon said. The Guardians aren't just weapons, they're keepers. Whatever's down there is what they were made to protect." Reeve looked from the burning sky to the boy. "Then we move. Now." They raced toward the old mining tunnels as explosions echoed behind them. The air was thick with smoke and dust. The ground trembled continuously as Guardians fought above, roaring, striking, unleashing golden fire against the enemy's violet beams. Each impact painted the desert sky with streaks of light. Through it all, Eli ran, the pendant lighting the dark tunnels ahead like a torch. When they reached the deepest chamber, the floor was smooth, carved in perfect circles. Strange symbols lined the walls, the same kind from the pendant. The air buzzed with quiet power. "This is it," Eli whispered. He stepped forward and placed the pendant into a hollow carved at the center of the floor. Instantly, the entire room came alive. The walls pulsed with golden light, and the ground began to shift. Above ground, the battle reached its peak. The Guardians fought furiously, but the enemy was adapting. The black ships had begun to merge, their bodies twisting together into one colossal shape, a living shadow the size of a mountain. Its wings blotted out the sun, and its roar made even the Guardians falter. "We failed once," said the lead Guardian, its voice resonating across the battlefield. "We will not fail again." Back below, the floor split apart, revealing a deep pit filled with swirling light. Dr. Marin stumbled backward. "It's not a weapon," she said breathlessly. "It's a vault." The light grew brighter, and a figure began to take form within it. A massive structure, circular, with long spires reaching up. Eli stared in awe. "It's another dragon," he whispered. "But it's asleep." Reeve grabbed his shoulder. "How do we wake it?" The boy's eyes glowed faintly now, the same gold as the pendant. "It's waiting for the command." The same command the necklace gave. He placed both hands on the glowing surface and whispered the words that had haunted him since the first night. "Guardian Protocol, Reawakening." The chamber exploded with light. The colony above shook violently, and for a moment everyone thought the planet itself would break apart. The massive sleeping Guardian below the surface stirred. Its body unfolded from the rock like it had been part of the planet itself. When it opened its eyes, the entire desert turned gold. The colossal dragon burst from beneath the ground, rising through the battlefield with a roar that shook the stars. It was larger than all the others combined, its wings stretching miles across. The black monster in the sky turned to face it, its voice hissing through the air. "We ended you once." The great Guardian's voice boomed back. "Then you remember your failure." Their clash was blinding. Fire and shadow collided in the heavens, sending shockwaves that flattened dunes for miles. Every Guardian joined in, flying beside their leader, weaving beams of light that cut through the dark. Below, Reeve shielded Eli and Marin as pieces of wreckage rained down, each one glowing red-hot from the heat of battle. The air trembled with power, and for the first time humanity saw what the ancient stories had called the Sky War. Eli could barely see through the brightness, but he heard the voices, dozens of them, speaking as one through the pendant. The light remembers. The cycle breaks tonight. And then, in a single flash that lit up half the planet, the Great Guardian unleashed its full power. A beam of energy wider than the colony itself struck the shadow creature, cutting through it like sunlight through fog. The Black Titan screamed, its form twisting, breaking apart into fragments of dark smoke that scattered across the sky. Silence followed. When the light faded, only the Guardians remained, their wings glimmering softly in the starlight. The colony lay in ruins, but the people were alive. The war had ended for now. Eli looked up at the great dragon that now hovered above the desert. It looked down at him with calm, glowing eyes. "The shadows will rise again," it said. "But you, human child, you carry the light forward. Tell your kind, our story is not over." As the Guardians began to ascend toward the stars, their bodies slowly turning into streams of golden light, Eli felt the pendant cool against his skin. The connection dimmed but did not fade. He watched until the last trace of the dragons vanished into the night sky. Then he whispered softly, "I'll remember." And far above, in the quiet void of space, one final ember of gold flickered, then ignited again, as if answering his promise.